We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. I've got 7:05 p.m. We have no amendments to the agenda. You have a motion to approve?
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
We have a second?
I'll second that.
Vote by roll call.
Okay, Councilor Caceres,
Aye.
Councilor Ecclestone,
Aye.
Councilor Purdy,
Aye.
Councilor Sini,
Aye.
Mayor Clevenger.
Aye.
Okay, and yeah, that is a unanimous vote.
All right. Public comments. So anyone who is in the attendees, if you have any comment to make, you can press the little button to raise your hand and we'll address it. I see no hands. So moving on, consent agenda. Everybody get a chance to read through everything, read through the minutes and all that. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? A motion to approve?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Go by roll call.
Okay, Councilor Caceres,
Aye.
Councilor Ecclestone,
Aye.
Councilor Purdy,
Aye.
Councilor Sini,
Aye.
Mayor Clevenger.
Aye.
That's a unanimous vote.
All right, so moving into the public hearing, municipal code ordinance update, chapters 1 and 3. For the attendees, we have been going through and updating quite a few of our municipal ordinances. So this will be us, I believe, revoking a handful of them that are no longer applicable or repealing them and making some tweaks to some other ones that are. So we will go ahead and open the public hearing. I have 7:08 p.m. Ron, your report.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just start with an overview, and then if there's detailed questions, council can follow up with those questions. As council knows, we've been about a 2-year process reviewing all of our ordinances, our development code, and systematically going through each chapter, having legal review conducted on these ordinances, and then making sure that they were written as we're actually utilizing the each ordinance. And this is kind of getting down to the culmination of that product. Back in August, we approved a comprehensive update to the development code. Since then, we've had council meetings where we've taken time and basically conducted a work session and talked about testing some of these changes with council. We did that at the last meeting with this batch of particular ordinances. And I guess what I'll do is just kind of go through them one by one and discuss them. Ordinance 671 repeals the old ordinance authorizing an Aumsville City Planning Commission, and that ordinance was 354. And basically, the substance changes here is we cleaned up a lot of language. There were some things in the old ordinance. I mean, if you think 354, I don't know what the original adoption date, but that was many years ago. But we cleaned up some language that had the mayor sitting on the planning commission. That wouldn't be something that would work today. And it's not our practice to have the mayor sit on the planning commission. We changed the authority to appoint the support staff for the Planning Commission to the city administrator rather than the Planning Commission, because they just don't do that. We do that for them. And then just cleaned up some of the language so that it would be more readable and understandable and easier to follow. Otherwise, I don't think there were any substantive changes to 671 other than that. Now that ordinance will repeal 354 and then it'll replace. So 671 will be the new ordinance authorizing the Planning Commission. Any questions on that ordinance, Council? Okay, I'll go ahead and move forward. Ordinance 672 is simply an ordinance that repeals Ordinance 362, which established a Parks and Recreation Commission. In the form that this ordinance had the Parks and Rec Commission in, we would have had to do a substantial rewrite of that ordinance, and we're in effect not utilizing that board any longer. I think a more efficient way is for us to do an internal structure right of this commission for future reference, and then have council approve that through a resolution, which seems to make a little bit more sense. We've actually changed the way that we're planning and approaching our Parks and Recs programs, and we're really doing that more under the authority of the administrator with involvement from anybody that wants to be involved versus selecting a few people to kind of plan that out from just a volunteer group. But certainly we can relook at that as council desires. Any questions about that? All right. Ordinance 673, this is an ordinance which repeals Ordinance 476, which established a Traffic and Safety Commission. Again, it's a board that the city's actually never used, or at least certainly not in recent memory have we used it. And I, really we would really have to think about if we were going to have some sort of a commission, what their role was, authority, what we actually wanted to get out of them. There's there may be other structures that again might be more appropriate than this particular one. And again, I would suggest that we form that by a resolution. Any questions about that? Okay, Ordinance 674. This ordinance replaces Ordinance 365, which provides for municipal water, sewer, service fees, sidewalks. This is basically the city's authority to lien property for various reasons. Again, 365 was many years ago. I'm not sure when the approval date, I'm not sure if it's in there, but there's a number of state ORSs that give the city that authority. So it's really not anything that we need. If the city wanted to do some sort of local improvement district or something of that nature, that authority is present and state ORS is given to the cities. So at least at this point, we don't see this ordinance as needed. So 674 is simply a repeal ordinance of 365. Any questions? Okay. Ordinance 675 is an ordinance that is repealing Ordinance 543. This was the skate park committee, and I think that committee was formed when the skate park project construction was going on, I believe, many years ago, and we don't really have a skate park committee. I think now we would bring people in to an ad hoc planning committee for either a parks facilities plan or something like that. And again, we don't really need an ordinance to provide the city that authority. We could do it without that. And so that's just a repeal of 543. Okay, no questions or any questions? Okay. Ordinance 676, this is an ordinance that replaces ordinance 544. I know it's starting to get to be a little bit of a tongue twister here. This ordinance, I believe, was made mute by a ballot measure. Ballot measure 37 was approved in 2004. When that ballot measure was approved, it basically null and voided the necessity of this ordinance or overrid this ordinance. So this is simply a repeal ordinance. Any questions on that? Okay. Let's see. Wrote one here. Let me get lost in my sea of ordinances. 677. This is our public contracting ordinance. This will repeal and replace ordinance 559. And we did some rewrites. This was really more of a legal review rewrite. We did do some rewrites. I think the red line version is in your packet, but really it was just to make sure that we were up to date with state law. And for the most part, we were in compliance. There were a few changes in spending authority thresholds and things of that nature that were changed. But for the most part, it was just a text rewrite. I don't think there were anything substantial, any substantial changes other than bringing us in line with the wording in the ORSs for public contracting. Any comments on that ordinance? Okay, excellent. We're at ordinance 678, which establishes our system development charges for the waters, sewer, streets, parks, stormwater, and this will replace ordinance 387. This is ordinance 678, and largely the same. It was a legal review, and it was really intended just to provide a little bit stronger legal basis for us. There's nothing substantial that's been changed in the ordinance. It was really more wordsmithing to align with the city charter. Any questions on that ordinance? Okay. Ordinance 679, this is the ordinance that is repealing and replacing ordinance 401, which allows us to charge for municipal water services. This actually did have quite a few substantial changes in it in this ordinance, and some of the highlights in there, and I'm not going to touch on all of them because there were, as you can see by the red lines, substantial changes, but the highlight changes that really affect the community is, one, we took all of the water rates out of the original ordinance because we really don't want to set water rates in an ordinance. We want to set those in resolution, and inserted the language that we would set water rates by resolution of the council. We left the senior discount rate the same. In this ordinance, we're not changing any of that. We left, or we pointed to a resolution to set any deposit fees or any future rates or any future discount programs. And the reason why we did that was to give council flexibility in the future. I know council wants to really look at the method in which we provide rates to the customers to see if there's other ways to do that or ways that might be more equitable. And so what this will do is give council that flexibility. One of the things that we did was we took lien language out of this ordinance. I know that was something council was really interested in. And we put in a provision for the homeowners of the property to sign a contract, which really is the way most cities have converted their utility ordinances to. And so in essence, what the city staff would look to do is to have owners of properties sign a contract that just simply says they'll be responsible for any use at that property, and then we won't charge a deposit. Right now we charge $180 deposit. And then the contract will be the binding document. And then if for some reason we have a homeowner that does not pay us, we can either collect that money through a property title transfer. Oftentimes when properties go through a sale or a transfer, we'll get notice from the title company to see if there's an outstanding balance. That'll allow us versus the lien process to put whatever the balance is on their closing documents. And if for some reason we're not able to collect in that method, and we're not able to collect in a method of somebody wants to put water at the property and we just won't connect until that balance is paid, we'll go to an electronic collection agency. And we have a collection agency that we use for court fines. And basically our recommendation is future delinquent accounts would move to that same type of collection system. And so that's really there's a lot of rewrites in this ordinance, but that is the substance of the changes. Again, senior discounts per council's discussion did not change. We left it as written in the previous ordinance, and we would just set those rates by resolution. And then those rates would take in effect. And we'll bring the resolutions that set the rates at today's current rate at the next meeting. That's another action item. Any questions about 401 or 679 is our new ordinance number. Okay, well, if that's the case, then ordinance 680, which is replacing ordinance 402, will be really easy because we basically mirrored the changes in the water ordinance in the sewer ordinance. Sewer ordinance is a little less wordy and complex, but we made those changes that were in the water ordinance that pertain to the sewer ordinance. And again, it's the same things that we discussed. Now, one of the provisions that we did put in the ordinance is in our previous ordinance, council had the authority to do a cost of living increase. It was really just an automatic action or a motion each year between 3% and 6%. And in the new provisions, the council would have a rate resolution that would be needed to adjust the rates. So you actually would have to come forward with a resolution to set the new rates, otherwise they would stay the same. And that's in both those ordinances. Any questions about those water and sewer ordinance? Okay, well, I'm going to move on to ordinance 681. Ordinance 681 will repeal and replace ordinance 570. And ordinance 570 or 681 now is the ordinance that's regulating the sanitary sewer system. And really this is the authorization for connections, what goes into the system, the permit process that folks need to follow, the discharge of the stormwater. This this is an important ordinance for us because, as you know, right now we are under an MOA with DEQ. And we really want to make sure that we've got a good handle on what's entering our system. And part of that new capital facilities plan that we're currently working on, and the probability that we'll be putting in a new sewer facility system, will really be understanding what flows in and out of our sanitary sewer system. And so this ordinance actually is a new ordinance that the city attorney adopted from a model ordinance. There were so many rewrites, I think, in 570 that we ended up not doing a red line version of size 570. We actually ended up just rewriting that ordinance. Everything that was in the previous ordinance, as far as the needs of the city, is contained in this ordinance. It's just formatted a little different. It's in different order and the language is a little bit different. Happy to answer any questions about 681. Okay, that concludes my quick overview of a long process to get us to here.
Thank you, Ron. Any questions? I know Ron just asked, but anybody got anything? All right, so at this time, I will open it up for public comment. And if there's anyone in the attendees section who has any questions, comments, concerns about any of these changes or repeals, now's your chance. Just go ahead and press the button to raise your hand and we will address you. I see nothing. So we will go ahead and close the public hearing. I have 7:27 p.m.
And Mayor, I think our recommendation from staff was that we go through and do a first reading by title only tonight, and then we would come back and do a second reading at the next meeting.
All right. So does anybody have any discussion points on any of this they want to bring up? Anything we need to deliberate? I feel like it's pretty straightforward.
Oh, looks like we got a question.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's just Rachel. So we will go ahead and just start with the first one. So the way we want to phrase this, Ron, we'll have a motion for each one for the first reading of each new ordinance, approve that, and then at the next meeting, we will do the second reading and give the final approval.
If that's council's pleasure, you have the authority to do both first and second reading tonight. We have proposed the wording for a motion for you for each of these in your council packet on the agenda. And you would just say, I move to approve, and then follow the wording if that's the way you wanted to do it. If you wanted to do a first and second reading of any of these, you could just follow it up with the same motion. You would just insert the second where the first is stated, the word first. So that's strictly up to you guys.
I mean, if we want to discuss that real quick, like I was saying earlier, I would prefer to do first now, second later. That just gives anyone in the community a chance to provide any comment or concerns they may have after seeing the video if they weren't in actual attendance at the meeting.
Absolutely. If you followed that process, you would just read as the motions are sampled for you there.
And then, Mayor, if it's okay with you too, because there's so many of these, if I can just address each council with their last name when I call for the thing. It'll just
Yeah.
shorten it a little bit, so that'll help.
Each one individually by roll call. Yeah, just by last name is fine. All right. So do we have a motion? Somebody, anybody?
I move to approve the first reading of ordinance number 671, an ordinance establishing city planning commission, prescribing its powers and duties, and repealing ordinance number 354 as presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Vote by roll call.
Okay. Caceres,
Aye.
Seha,
Aye.
Ecclestone,
Aye.
Purdy,
Aye.
Feeney,
Aye.
Clevenger.
All right.
That is a unanimous vote.
All right. Do we have a motion on ordinance 672?
I motion to approve the first reading by title only of ordinance number 672, an ordinance repealing ordinance number 362, which established a Park and Recreation Commission for the city of Aumsville.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Vote by roll call.
Okay. Caceres,
Aye.
Seha,
Aye.
Ecclestone,
Aye.
Purdy,
Aye.
Feeney,
Aye.
Clevenger.
Aye.
And Mayor, can I jump in for a second? Actually, the wording that Councilor Sini used is probably more complete. I think the wording we have in here is okay, but if you can insert by title only into the motion, I think that would be a more complete motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
So where are we at? 673. Do we have a motion on 673?
I move to approve the first reading of ordinance number 673, an ordinance repealing number 475, which established a Aumsville Traffic and Safety Commission by title only as presented.
I'll
second
that.
Vote by roll call.
Actually, he said 475. It should be 476, I believe.
Oh, I apologize. I don't have my glasses on tonight. I'll amend what I said and saying repealing ordinance 476, which established a Traffic and Safety Commission as presented by title only. Good catch.
I'll second that.
All right. Vote by roll call.
Caceres,
Aye.
Seha,
Aye.
Ecclestone,
Aye.
Purdy,
Aye.
Feeney,
Aye.
Clevenger.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Do we have a motion on 674?
I move to approve the first reading by title only of ordinance number 674, an ordinance repealing ordinance number 365, which provides for municipal sewer and water service fees, sidewalk curbs, side strips, and street assessments to become liens.
Do we have a second?
I'll
Seconded.
second.
Vote by roll call.
Okay. Which one of you was first?
I believe it was Mr. Ecclestone was first.
Okay. All right. Okay. Caceres,
Aye.
Seha,
Aye.
Ecclestone,
Aye.
Purdy,
Aye.
Feeney,
Aye.
Clevenger.
Aye.
And that's a unanimous vote.
Do we have a motion on ordinance number 675?
I'll
I
move
move
to
to
approve.
approve.
Go ahead, Nico.
Go ahead, Larry.
I move to approve first reading by title only of ordinance number 675, an ordinance repealing ordinance number 543, which provided for appointment of an Aumsville Committee for the City of Aumsville, Oregon.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Vote by roll call.
Caceres,
Aye.
Seha,
Aye.
Ecclestone,
Aye.
Purdy,
Aye.
Feeny,
Aye.
Clevenger.
Aye.
That's a unanimous vote.
Do we have a motion on ordinance number 676?
I move to approve the first reading of ordinance number 676 and ordinance repealing ordinance number 544, an ordinance of the City of Aumsville, Oregon regarding claims for just compensation arising out of the enactment of a statewide ballot measure, making certain provision therefore and declaring an emergency
By title only.
by title only.
Second.
Vote by roll call.
Caceres,
Aye.
Seha,
Aye.
Ecclestone,
Aye.
Purdy,
Aye.
Feeny,
Aye.
Clevenger.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Do we have a motion on ordinance number 678?
Oops, 677.
7-7.
77? Sorry, it's 2 a.m. here. So a motion on number 677.
I move to approve the first reading by title only of ordinance number 677, and ordinance adopting rules to be known as the City of Aumsville Public Contracting Regulations and repealing ordinance number 559.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Vote by roll call.
Okay, Caceres,
Aye.
Ecclestone,
Aye.
Purdy,
Aye.
Feeny,
Aye.
Clevenger. Oops. Yeah,
Believe
Clevenger,
it's-
sorry.
I think you forgot
That's
me.
Oh, I did. Seha. I knew there was one I was missing. Seha.
Aye.
Okay. Now it's unanimous.
678.
I'll move that we approve first reading by title only of ordinance number 678, an ordinance which establishes a systems development charge for capital improvements for water supply, treatment, transmission and distribution, wastewater collection, treatment and disposal, storm drainage, including flood control, streets and parks, and repealing ordinance number 387.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Vote by roll call.
Was that Della?
Yes.
All right. Caceres,
Aye.
Seha,
Aye.
Ecclestone,
Aye.
Purdy,
Aye.
Feeny,
Aye.
Clevenger.
Aye.
That is a unanimous vote.
What are we at? 679? Do we have a motion on 679?
I move to approve first reading by title only of ordinance 679 and ordinance establishing water regulations and repealing ordinance number 401 as presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Vote by roll call.
Caceres,
Aye.
Seha,
Aye.
Ecclestone,
Aye.
Purdy,
Aye.
Feeny,
Aye.
Clevenger.
Aye.
That is a unanimous vote.
Do we have a motion on 680?
I move to approve ordinance 680 and ordinance establishing sewer regulations and repealing ordinance number 402 by title only as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Vote by roll call.
Okay, Caceres,
Aye.
Seha,
Aye.
Ecclestone,
Aye.
Purdy,
Aye.
Feeny,
Aye.
Clevenger.
Aye.
That is a unanimous vote.
We have a motion on 681.
I move to approve the first reading by title only of ordinance number 681 and ordinance adopting regulations for use of the city's sanitary sewer system and repealing ordinance number 570.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Vote by roll call.
Caceres,
Aye.
Seha,
Aye.
Ecclestone,
Aye.
Purdy,
Aye.
Feeny,
Aye.
Clevenger.
Aye.
That is unanimous.
Cool. That was the last one.
Last one.
No old business, no new business. So, Ron, your report?
A really short report tonight. I've put together a written report, which really summarized all the updates at the last council meeting. Just to update you on our COVID count is at 52 today. It seems like the city's holding its own, and really the increases that we've been seeing is proportionate to our population compared to what we've seen in other cities. So I don't really see a hot spot or an outbreak other than just the inflation of this pandemic based on a population our size. So otherwise, we're just continuing to monitor the situation. We're continuing to take precautions. I am proud of the fact that we planned early and we're able to get our City Hall facilities open. There's a lot of cities that just don't have the capacity to open, but based on our staff size and some of the construction changes that we made inside the lobby to separate people, to separate the public from our staff, we've been fortunate that we've been actually providing business since July, and so proud of that fact. You'll notice there's lots of construction going on around town. We've been busy working with businesses that have expanded or changed and or new businesses that are moving into the community, which is great for our residents. And we are currently working with a number of other potential applicants for various improvement projects. So the Cleveland Street project that Bethel Baptist is working on, I went by and looked at it today. It's looking really good. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to drive by there, but certainly it looks nice, and that's going to be a great improvement to that particular area. Other than that, I really don't have anything pressing to report, but happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Anybody got anything for Ron? I'll just throw out there, Ron, sitting out in Africa right now. As always, you're a rock star. Our COVID response has been fantastic. I won't go down the rabbit hole of COVID, but needless to say, we're doing a pretty good job with dealing with the whole situation. All right, if nobody's got any questions, anybody have anything to report?
I just want to give a shout out really quick. I don't want to steal Mayor's thunder, but I just want to give a shout out to Mayor Clevenger, Councilor Ecclestone, Councilor Seha, and all of our citizens and sponsors who came together to help fundraise some money for the folks that really needed it up the canyon. And it took a lot of, in a relative amount of time, short amount of time, we raised a good chunk of money, and it was a collaborative effort. Mayor worked his butt off, and so did Councilor Ecclestone and Councilor Seha. And I just want to recognize them for their efforts, as well as the folks that pitched in whatever they could to, help, really help some people that needed the help. So I just want to thank you guys and recognize you guys for your efforts. And I was proud to be able to be a part of that and help. So thank you.
Yeah, definitely a huge shout out to Volkswagen Salem and Maps and Peace
Yes.
Pretzel and Gilgamesh Brewery and all the different groups that came in. Doug, what was and I mean, I know this wasn't technically a city event, but what were we looking at the final count? Was it like 51-27 or something like that?
Yeah, 51.27, and I think like 39 cents.
And so that's all money that's going to the Santiam Canyon Wildfire Relief Fund. I mean, for something that kind of got pulled out of thin air in a couple of weeks, I think that was awesome. And just, with COVID, the summer was kind of devoid of typical events. So it was nice to get something going that people could engage in and have a little fun and raise money for a good cause. I see your question, Rachel. So did you see that, Ron?
Yeah, I was actually typing one to the panelists, but Rachel asked the question about the status of the blinking light on 11th and Main. That was voted we authorized that could be removed a few meetings ago. Her question was timing. I'm actually glad you prompted me, Mayor, because my typing is slow and it was taking me a while to respond to her. But we authorized Marion County to remove that light, Rachel, as part of a pole realignment project that they're conducting right there at that intersection. I don't know the timing of where this project is in their queue. I do know that they have to schedule with the power company to move those poles, and sometimes that's a bit of an elusive schedule. So I can check on that to see if they have a schedule, but if I gave it to you, it would be, and I'll follow up with you, Rachel, specifically, but if I gave you a schedule, know that it would be contingent on the power company and Marion County, both of which have a habit of changing those schedules fairly frequently.
Stop sign for the railroad tracks on Del Mar. I mean, to address that briefly, the stop sign there, I believe, is a even though the tracks aren't being used, it's kind of a liability issue. No?
Well, this has been a process going on with Marion County and ODOT Rail for a couple of years now. There actually was an action that was taken, I think it was by ODOT Rail, to label the tracks suspended, and under that suspension order, you could remove those stop signs so you don't have to stop, because currently there's no traffic on that line. But I believe there was some sort of a dispute with Marion County on who was going to remove and replace those lines, and some language between them and ODOT Rail, and they hadn't settled that. But I can check on the status of that, and I can certainly get back to, I think that's Scott that's asked that question, correct? And certainly get back to you with that.
Well, and I mean, even if it was suspended, if they were to lift that suspension, we'd have to put a stop sign back in, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We've been, for a number of years, we've been trying to get the line abandoned, because we'd rather not see that line become active again. Also, it hinders development. We have a lot of development in that commercial corridor that can't develop really unless they put in some rail safety mitigation. And it's just been a very contentious discussion between ODOT Rail and the city. And then complicating that factor, you have some cities that would like to see the rail remain active, and there's even more cities that would like to see the rail active and expanded. Mm-hmm. There's also some groups, economic development groups, the SEDCOR and certain elements in Marion County that would like to see that rail active again for economic development purposes. And so there's just been a long, complicated discussion on that project and what to do with it. I think they did an analysis of the rail condition, which really shows a lot of heavy investment would have to be made into that. So it's hard to say where they stand. ODOT rail, they don't want to get rid of any rail, so they're adamantly opposed to that. I just don't think that rail line is viable personally, at least not for customers at the end of the line currently, unless the plan is to extend that line to Albany or further down the road. So we continue to have those discussions, but we have made there's no specific details that have been settled on between Marion County ODOT Rail and our city. So the stop sign will probably remain up unless that suspension order comes into effect.
And full disclosure on that, and I believe we talked about it at council, probably a year ago. There was a private group that was looking at purchasing the rail, and they had asked me to sign on to a letter in support of them doing that. Mm-hmm. And their offer was basically if they purchased the rail, they would put in the crossing arms for us. The only stipulation I gave them as far as me signing on to that letter was a commitment from them that they also wouldn't impact Lucky U's operations, because I believe that property is still owned by the rail line, but the building is owned by Tanya or John or one of them or both of them. But that was a letter I did sign on to with the stipulation that they would make a commitment not to negatively impact their business. But a long issue I know Ron and I have talked about at length since I first got elected.
And I don't believe there's been any movements, or at least I haven't heard of any updates on that arrangement.
Correct. I see Debbie's hand raised.
I'm talking. Does anyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. It's interesting. Africa can hear me before 2 miles away can hear me. Anyway, while we're talking about that intersection of the railroad and Del Mar, could maybe Steve or somebody go out there? The road, not by big trucks stopping, but maybe underwater movement, is starting to really get some bad dips in it. So I'd just like somebody to check it, please.
Well, the timing of your comment is fantastic, as usual, Debbie. Our engineer and our public works staff actually did a comprehensive review of that entire intersection area, 400 feet south or 400 feet west of First Street on Del Mar, and then both up and down the intersection. And that the reason being is because one of the future projects that we're going to bring forward to council as part of our strategic planning effort is the possibility of the city doing a partial design of a couple of key intersections in the city. And then we could get a good handle on cost for improving those intersections. We do have a little bit of transportation system development money, and that's actually, it's limited to an expansion of the current system. And those design projects are probably a good use, design and construction, if it adds to capacity for those funds. So they're actually working on that as you speak, and they just did that review that you were requesting, and I'll get a report back from them as soon as it's completed, and I'll bring that forward to council.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you, Debbie. Any other questions at all?
Ron, just for public consumption, can you give the public just kind of a general idea of what crossing arms would cost, just ballpark, just so they understand that it's not like something that we're not,
Yeah.
funding or doing, just so they're aware.
Well, there's a requirement of ODOT rail to have 3 crossing guards, one at First, at the angled crossing, one at Delmar, and one at Mill Creek. And the crossing guards themselves, there's an estimate in our transportation facility plan, and I believe it's either $250,000 or $500,000 each. That's high for a crossing guard, safety crossing rail. But I believe the reason why that number's elevated is that one of the requirements from ODOT Rail is that all 3 of those crossing guards have to be tied in and work at the same time. And that I think is what the expensive part is, because you've got to do something from Mill Creek all the way over to Delmar, and they have to be somehow interconnected. And so, yeah, the project I think in our transportation plan, I want to say it's somewhere around, the crossing guard portion is somewhere around $1.5 million. Some people have said that number's high, but unless you go through what's called a safety crossing order hearing, which is basically where you develop the standard and the authority of who's going to pay for this, you really can't get a handle on costs. So everything's really just a placeholder at this
time. I believe in a previous conversation you and I had, Ron, that the 1.5 million roughly, I mean, that's just for the crossing arms. There was a lot more costs involved with having to re-engineer sections of the road and stuff like that. That was, I mean, it was a massive cost for us if we were having to do all 3. It was something that was pretty much out of our realm of possibility.
Yeah, the estimates that we have in our transportation plan are somewhere around $7 million for the improvements that would be needed at the Delmar intersection realignment, and up through the crossing guards to Mill Creek.
Yeah.
And again, without doing some sort of analysis of that intersection, they're fairly hypothetical numbers, and that's one of the reasons why I think it might be a benefit to the city to get a 30 to 50% design put down on paper. And I don't know what that's going to cost us. I'm getting some estimates from the engineering firms, but $50,000 to $150,000 for those designs, depending on how far we go. That's a pretty good investment choice from a strategic planning platform. And then when we do get folks that want to come and develop, at least we've got something down on paper that they can look at. Their engineers can pull some closer, more realistic costs. It's difficult to get somebody to develop that commercial industrial zone that we have there, the interchange development zone, and really go full feet in without really understanding what their total obligation is. And it's hard to get somebody to throw that kind of money up front to do a pre-design of the intersection, not knowing if they're going to pull the trigger and actually move forward with some development. So that might be from a standpoint of meeting the city's long-term financial goals. That might be a good investment. The other intersection that we're looking at is the far end of Delmar, where it would eventually come out on 11th Street. I know there's a capital facilities initiative out by the district, the school district, and there's been lots of concerns about the 11th Street and that little bit of traffic that goes in and out from the school there, and then it meets traffic coming down 11th Street. And so that also might be a good investment of some of those dollars for the city. And that is a project that I actually think the city would be very successful in getting some grant money for. But it's difficult to get the grant money unless you've got at least a partial design to understand what it's going to cost.
Cool. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Ron.
Anybody have anything else for the good of the order? So, you know, I brought it up a couple times, my schedule. So I got into Burkina Faso on the 24th. Just kind of an admin thing. The internet here is decent, but the local government does shut it off from time to time. They do have their national elections coming up, and generally some civil unrest occurs during that time. So obviously I'm going to remain in contact as best as I possibly can, but you know, there is potential that they shut it off and I'm out of contact for a couple of days. Barring that happening, I will be in Burkina Faso until the 20th of November, and then I will jump over to Djibouti. Djibouti is a little bit better socioeconomically, and the internet should be faster and more reliable and everything over there. So I'm not anticipating any issues once we jump over to that country. I will be there until December 15th. My flights getting home are an absolute nightmare, but it's looking like it may take about 3 days to get home. But after that, I will be back stateside for quite a while. That's really all I got. I'm doing what I can to stay in contact as best as possible. If nobody has anything else, go ahead and adjourn the meeting. I have 8:02 p.m.